What if queer icons from the past wrote their New Year's resolutions today? Hi there, I'm Chris with a K, and welcome back to This Week in Queer History, where we celebrate queer moments and icons that I wish I had known about as a young gay kid growing up in conservative America. In this New Year's resolution episode, we're diving into how queer trailblazers didn't just dream big, they made those dreams happen. We'll explore the patterns, the skills, and the beautifully scrappy techniques that LGBTQ leaders use to turn hope into action. These moments in history can do more than just inspire us. They can show us how to achieve our own goals and dreams right now.
This week in queer history, stories told with love and glee.
So what if Harvey Milk and Marsha P were here today and they were making their 2026 resolutions? Well, we'd see Harvey scribbling "empower others" on a yellow notepad, riffing on his real-life belief that giving people hope was his most important job. And Marsha would be jotting down "free everyone's love," echoing her fight for liberation and safety for queer and trans people living on the margins. Christine Jorgensen would be all over TikTok with "this year's goal, be 100% myself." And yes, these may be silly thoughts since the struggles that they faced were so much harder, but if they could set goals, world-changing goals, in their eras with as many struggles that they had, maybe our little 2026 resolutions deserve a second look. So let's step into our imaginary time-traveling machine and look at the real stories behind these modern resolutions. Because queer history is full of people who turned wild, unreasonable dreams into very real change. And to keep us focused and grounded, I'm using 4 big patterns from LGBTQ history as our queer New Year's toolkit. Number 1, pick a bold vision. Number 2, build your dream team. Number 3, speak your truth loudly. Number 4, persist through all the setbacks. Think of this as your little queer project plan for the year. So let's get into it. Number 1, pick a bold vision. So imagine Audre Lorde at a kitchen table that looks suspiciously like a Brooklyn Airbnb. She's got a notebook, a mug of tea, and a resolution that just says, "Dare to be powerful." In real life, Audre Lorde was a Black lesbian poet, feminist, and a civil rights activist, born in New York City in 1934 to Caribbean parents, and famously describing herself as a Black lesbian, feminist, socialist, mother, warrior, and poet. Her work insisted that there could be no hierarchy of oppressions, and that difference, like race, sexuality, and class, they all should be a source of connection and power, not something to erase. One of the lines that she's best known for is, "When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid." That's not a cute little drink more water resolution. That's a mission statement. Her goal wasn't just to publish poems, it was to create language and community for people who had never seen themselves reflected in literature. So now if we zap Audre into the future and we imagine her writing, "Use my strength in service of my vision" on a 2026 planner, it isn't that far off. She reminds us that the size of the vision matters. When your goal is rooted in your values, maybe it's liberation or justice or creativity, whatever it is, it becomes bigger than what you fear. So to translate this into something we can use and into New Year's resolution language, you could stick with safe goals like "I'll scroll less often on Instagram," but Audre would challenge you to choose something like "I'll create a space that lifts queer voices up, especially where history tried to silence them." And that's huge, but that's the kind of vision that actually gets you out of yourself and pulls you forward. And it informs all of your choices. So think about it. Maybe? Number 2, build your dream team. So let's imagine Marsha P. and Sylvia Rivera sitting at a rickety kitchen table in a cramped East Village apartment. A list of resolutions on the wall reads, "House trans youth, feed everyone, and annoy City Hall in a loving way." In real life, Marsha and Sylvia co-founded STAR, Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. This was in New York City in 1970. They were focused on supporting unhoused queer and trans youth, especially those of color. Star House, their 4-bedroom rental in the East Village, offered shelter, food, and community to kids the rest of the world had thrown away. Marsha, a Black, trans-identified drag queen and activist, had already been involved in the Stonewall Uprising of 1969 and later took part in groups like the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activist Alliance. Sylvia, a Latina drag queen and later trans activist who had been living on the streets from age 10, brought her own fierce understanding of survival and community care. And together, they didn't just make a resolution like help people more. They created an organization, raised money, ran a communal house, and built a chosen family structure that has literally become a template for queer mutual aid ever since. Meanwhile, as we flip the channel of our time-traveling universe, Bayard Rustin is writing logistics on his iPad. Rustin, a Black gay activist, was the principal organizer of the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. He worked closely with A. Philip Randolph to coordinate one of the largest civil rights demonstrations in U.S. history. He had already helped plan earlier efforts like the 1941 March on Washington, which was protesting discrimination in defense industries, and he organized freedom rides and trained Martin Luther King Jr. in nonviolent resistance. But because he was openly gay, Rustin was often pushed into the background, but he stayed at the center of strategy, building coalitions, coordinating unions, and holding together the messy human reality behind a big dream. From Marsha, Sylvia, and Bayard, we get one big New Year's rule. If your goal matters, you probably can't do it alone. You need co-dreamers or organizers, friends that are on that list of people that make up your village. So find your people. Number 3, speak your truth loudly. So here we have Christine Jorgensen sitting in her at-home live stream studio. She says into camera, "Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. This year I'm going to tell the truth about who I am," and then she holds up a card on camera. Goal, be 100% myself in 2026. Christine Jorgensen, born in New York City in 1926, was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1944. And after World War II, she learned about gender-affirming surgeries and traveled to Denmark, where she began hormone therapy and underwent a series of operations that started in 1951. When she returned to the U.S., the New York Daily News ran a front-page story that made her one of the first widely known transgender women in the country. Instead of retreating, she used her sudden fame to perform and to lecture at colleges and advocate publicly for trans people, later publishing a best-selling autobiography in 1967. Her resolution wasn't just to transition privately, it was to live openly in a world that was absolutely not ready. She turned her life into a form of public education. Then we skip forward to Harvey Milk, sitting at a desk with a calendar open to January 2026. He writes on the first day of the month, "Give them hope." Now, in reality, Harvey Milk moved from New York City to San Francisco in the early 1970s. He opened a camera shop in the Castro and ran multiple times for office before finally winning a seat in the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1977. He became the first openly gay man elected to public office in California. And during his short time in office, he helped pass a citywide ordinance banning discrimination based on sexual orientation in housing, employment, and public accommodations. This is a huge step in local law. Milk believed and said over and over that the simple act of queer people coming out, neighbors, coworkers, teachers, would transform public opinion. His speeches consistently returned to the theme of hope. Hope that visibility could change hearts, votes, and laws. So when you and when I write down a goal and then we actually say it out loud, we're borrowing a page from Christine and Harvey, visibility as strategy. Number 4, persist through the setbacks. Okay, let's zip to Edith or Edie Windsor. She's sitting at a tiny kitchen table in New York with a huge stack of legal papers next to a humming laptop that has a bright sticky note slapped next to the trackpad. And it says, "Resolution. Sue the United States for justice. Edie Windsor, born in Philadelphia in 1929, was a brilliant tech mind who became a senior systems programmer at IBM in the 1960s, working on operation systems and early computing long before personal computers were common. And she spent decades with her partner, Thea Spire. They eventually married in Canada in 2007. When Thea died in 2009, the US federal government refused to recognize their marriage because of the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, and Edie was hit with a large estate tax bill that a straight widow would never have had to pay. But instead of just paying it and grieving in private, she sued. In United States versus Windsor, 2013, well, the Supreme Court struck down Section 3 of DOMA, and her case became a landmark in the movement for marriage equality. It led to federal agencies extending benefits to same-sex couples. And that's not an easy, tidy, one-year resolution. That's years of grief and paperwork and persistence, but it changed millions of lives. And zooming out, the broader LGBTQ movement shows the same pattern, from early groups like the Mattachine Society and Daughters of Bilitis through the 1969 Stonewall Uprising to today's fight against new anti-LGBTQ laws targeting trans youth. Queer leaders have kept pushing through the backlash and the heartbreak. Reports on LGBTQ leadership point out this resilience, authenticity, and grassroots activism, and the intersectional thinking at the core of these skills learned through repeated setbacks and constant reinvention. And if we pull back even further, drawing from other historical leaders like Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela, we see the same tools. Clear values-based vision, breaking huge goals into smaller steps, sharing goals publicly for accountability, and staying flexible when the plan needs to change. So your resolution can absolutely be just go to the gym more, but history is whispering to you. You're also allowed to choose something bigger, and you're allowed to fall down and get back up, and fall down again and get back up. I've always had a very interesting relationship with New Year's resolutions. They show up every year like that overeager gym coach who has the whistle and the hype and this is your year, let's do this. And I don't know if it's because I grew up in a very homogenous state like Utah, or because I spent so much of my life trying to carve out my own path outside of what society expected me to do. But something in me has always just cringed a little bit anytime that everyone feels obligated to do the same thing at the same time. And I really don't do very well with shoulds. And so the moment something becomes a should, my whole body is just like, absolutely not. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. But the truth is, which I've had to learn slowly in my own way, is that I actually love goals. I love imagining futures. I love building plans and sketching out what could be. I just wanted to come from a place that feels authentic and genuine and not performative. And for me, a goal needs to unfold like a conversation, and there has to be plenty of curiosity or a sense of daydreaming that I cannot shake. Yeah, it has to be filled with so much passion. And that got me thinking about the queer trailblazers that I've been researching and looking at for this last year, especially the ones that we're looking at today in this episode. They weren't sitting around, chanting resolutions just because that the calendar flipped to that new year. They dreamed because they had to. They had to build strategies because survival demanded it. And they didn't always have perfect action plans or color-coded trackers, but they had something even wilder and definitely more durable. They had a vision, and they shared that vision with their communities, which helped lighten the load and make a clearer path for everyone. And I've been thinking a lot about the way that our resolutions, if we're not careful, they can become so self-focused that we forget who we are in a community. And I've made those goals before too. I did eat better, sleep more, do more reps at the gym. And there's really nothing wrong with that. But these goals, well, they rarely changed me the way that I wanted to be changed. The goals that did Well, they were the ones that reached outside of myself. The ones that asked, what could I do that makes life better for someone else? Maybe a friend or a stranger or a community. So this year, I'm naming a resolution out loud. I want this channel to reach more people who need hope. I want to keep telling queer history in a way that feels like a hand reaching through the darkness, a steadying, encouraging, hopeful voice that says, you're not strange and you are not alone. And you come from a long line of people who dared to imagine a better world for themselves and others. And I am not just about views or comments or this momentary spark of virality. I want to create spaces here and beyond here where conversations turn into friendships and friendships turn into community, and community becomes the reason that someone makes it through that hard night. That feels like a goal worth making and worth fighting for and failing at, and then getting up and doing it all over again. And the beautiful thing is that I don't have to do it alone. We don't have to do it alone. We have those around us in our community right now, and we have this beautiful thing, the internet, this wild, glittery, sparkly web of madness, and we have our history. We have Marsha and Sylvia, Harvey and Christine, Bayard and Eddie, reaching across time, reminding us that dreaming together is how things change. So that's my resolution, and if you're still searching for yours, make sure you're taking care of yourself first. Always take care of yourself first. But if you want to go bigger, maybe borrow a dream from a queer hero. Find a goal that is about helping someone else, and let that be the light that you follow into the new year. Ooh, so here we go into the new year. There is so much to talk about. If you want to drop a comment about your own resolution, or if there's a queer icon that's inspiring your goals for the year, please drop them down below. I read and respond to all of them. And if you want more queer history, click this video popping up right over here. And you can always check out myqueerbirthday.com for more icons and events that happened on your birthday. Until next time, stay strong, stay bold, and keep making history.